Hey everyone, and welcome back to Saya no Uta. Let us continue. When he steps out of the cabin's front door, Koji shivers as the wind tears into his skin. To his surprise, the outside air is even colder than the mud at the bottom of the well. Perhaps the cramped space mitigated the cold somewhat. If he had been exposed to this chill all night long, he would surely have frozen to death. Koji finds two cars parked in the yard. The Mini next to his Accord must be Ryoko's. When he sits behind the wheel of his car, he gets some relief from the feeling that he has taken the first step, however small, back into his world. He sips the sports drink, wetting his parched throat, then washes down some jelly. His stomach rebels at the sudden influx of food after 36 hours on empty, but he manages to force down the urge to vomit. Koji needs the energy. No matter how hard it is, he must regain enough stamina to overcome the challenges ahead. After forcing down as much food as he can handle, Koji leans back in his seat and takes a short break. When he begins to feel like himself again, he reaches into the back seat and pulls his spare cell phone out of his bag. He never expected that carrying two phones would be such a stroke of luck. As he calls up Fuminori's number and prepares to hit send, Koji is overcome by a flood of emotion. Rage, despair, sorrow, pity. He is unable to decide what to feel towards his friend. However, there's no time to dwell on his past. Every second lost diminishes the chance of saving Omi and Yo. Koji refuses to consider that it may already be too late, but unfortunately it is. He steels himself and presses the button, then holds the phone to his ear as it rings. The shrill sound seems to go on for longer than it ever has in his life. Right now, Fuminori's phone must be displaying the number of the caller. Koji wonders what his reaction will be when he sees it. The call goes through. In the silence on the other end of the phone, Koji senses surprise, apprehension, and dark fury. Feeling slightly gratified, Koji delivers the first jab.
Yo, そんなに意外か、死人からの電話は。驚いたね。どうやって？
As Koji is about to answer, an idea suddenly comes to his mind. Mind.
井戸の底に仕掛けがあったのさ。地下の隠し部屋に行くためのな。
Koji says, a plan forming rapidly in his mind. He pauses to let that sink in. Then, with satisfaction filling his voice, he says,
会えたぜ。大貝正彦と。
Well, it's not a lie. Fuminori's gasp tells Koji that the advantage is his. Keeping his voice bold, he decides to further exaggerate the truth.
何もかも分かった。さやってやつのことも全部。お前たちは終わりだよ、Fuminori。何もかもばらしてやる。ところ構わずにぶちまけてやる。証拠はちゃんと揃ってるからな。貴様は。
It's obvious from Fuminori's tone that rage has overwhelmed his reason. Koji's bluff is working perfectly. His victory is tainted, however, as Fuminori responds to the name Saya, brings a cry of anguish from the corner of his heart that still wants to believe his friend can be saved.
咲坂君がこのさやと呼ばれるものとすでに深く関わっているのなら
Ryoko's words play back in his head, sounding even colder than before.
彼はもう引き返せないところまで踏み込んでいる
He mustn't allow emotion to sway him.
Fuminori、大見と筑波はどこだ？
Koji suddenly switches topics, trying to keep Fuminori off balance. It all comes down to this.
俺にだって情けはある。お前の出方次第では考えんでもない。お前がこれ以上誰も傷つけないというのなら、俺にしたことは忘れてやる。この別荘で見つけたことも。俺だってこれ以上、お前とさやに関わり合いを持つのは願い下げなんだ。大見たちさえ無事に戻ればいい。大海とようね。
Fuminori's voice trails off. He's obviously trying to decide how far Koji can be trusted and whether there's room for negotiation. Fuminori has been called out and now it's time for him to show his hand. Fuminori pauses, then gives an annoying chuckle that sends chills up Koji's spine. Koji is relieved to learn Yo's location and that she is, at least, still alive. At the same time, however, he remembers that horrifying phone call. It is clear now that Fuminori played some part in Yo's suffering. Had she already fallen into his trap back then? What has happened to her? How is she being treated? Fuminori says with venomous sarcasm. I don't think that's what he and Omi wanted. Koji feels despair settle over his soul. How much lower will this man go? Must Fuminori seek out and destroy every memory of the friendship they once shared?
つくばを解放しろ。彼女の安全を確認したら、お前らについての証拠を破棄してやる。信用できるか？そっちが責任。お前に選択の余地を与えるつもりはないよ、
Koji instinctively realizes that it's dangerous to push his bluff any further.
後でまた連絡する。それまでによく考えておけ。
He hangs up without waiting for a response. Fuminori doesn't know that Koji is still at the cabin in Tochigi. Right now he's probably worrying about whether Koji will show up in 1 hour or 1 minute. Koji hopes that he'll be able to take advantage of Fuminori's confusion. 3 hours. That's how long it will take to race all the way back to Tokyo. Koji is afraid that his body won't carry him through such a long drive. His mind is clear, but his limbs still feel half asleep, like they're weighed down with lead. Although he knows that he has to stay resolute, Koji still longs for the peace he had just a few days ago, when life or death struggles were the furthest thing from his mind. Back then, he could never have imagined himself fighting to rescue a friend from the clutches of a madman. With each passing moment, he feels himself becoming less like the person he was. When all of this is over, will he be able to return to his old life? Or will this change continue until it has consumed him utterly? Time is against him. Every second that passes is wasted. Even so, he decides to allow himself just 5 minutes of weakness. For exactly 5 minutes, he leans against the steering wheel and cries. And when his tears have run dry and his heart is calm, Koji starts up his Accord and drives away. I stare at the silent phone in my hand. What's up with these noises in the background? There's anger, of course, but something cold and heavy holds my emotions in check. The sense of danger. To be honest, I'm surprised at how calm I am. She's calling him master now. Anyway, I have to cut here. See you in a second. Saya returns from the kitchen, where she'd gone in search of a midnight snack. She's munching on her favorite, spare ribs. Purging myself of unease and impatience, I respond with a casual shrug. Arama. By breaking the news suddenly and without any trace of anxiety, I am able to avoid frightening Saya. Instead, she is merely surprised. I knew that remaining calm would work. Moreover, I'm currently getting my penis sucked by you. It would be hard for anyone to get too serious under these circumstances. Saya lowers her eyes and strokes her chin thoughtfully. Saya nods. I can tell that she is reluctant to leave, but at least there is no sadness in her expression. Everything will be fine. I will protect my life with Saya just as I have up until now. I have that power. Knowing that we've overcome one problem fills me with new confidence. Saya hastily discards her spare ribs and pushes the still sucking Yo off of me.
いや、それは。
But time to cut again. See you in a second.
ごちそうさま。
欲張りだよな、さやは。
I say, smiling wryly as I look at Yo, who is lying limply on the floor.
絶対に独り占めなんだな。
当然でしょ。他の女にあげたりしたら承知しないんだから。
After baring her teeth at me grumpily, she burrows her face into my stomach.
本当に嫌だよ。
It's adorable how Saya goes from angry to pleading like this. I find myself reaching down to muss up her hair.
大丈夫。安心していいよ。さあ、じゃあ急いで支度しよう。
We can travel light and take the Suzumi family car. I'd better withdraw everything that's left in my bank account and carry it as cash. I'll also need a weapon, something more reliable than a butcher's knife. Koji will most likely follow. He thinks that Yo can still be saved. However, I am not abandoning this house just to run away. As long as Koji knows our location, we're stuck on the defensive. Leaving gives me the chance to regain the initiative and to deal with him at a place of my choosing. The next time we meet, I'll kill him with my own 2 hands. I'll make sure to wring every last drop of life out of his body. A shiver runs through me as I anticipate the battle ahead, and my bloodlust burns like orgasmic fire. When Ryoko looks up, the morning sun is already streaming in through the window. Tired from hours of poring over files, she removes her glasses and massages her aching eyes. Her dreams are always filled with horror, yet the night she just spent was more nightmarish than them all. And it's not over yet, she has only just set foot on the threshold. As expected, the files left by Ogai Masaiko were not the sort that Ryoko could simply pick up and read. Fortunately, Ogai had been too old-fashioned to put his trust in electronic media. If he had encrypted his files on a computer, she'd have had to find a hacker to decipher them. In fact, he had not employed any kind of code in his writing. That would have been too time-consuming by hand. The method of obfuscation he did use was quite simple. Of the files Ryoko pulled from his underground lab, the majority turned out to be notes and theses from Ogai's days as a student. The important papers were the diaries and research notes that had been scattered throughout the piles of worthless crap. At first, she was unable to understand the documents that she had found. Each sheet was covered with text on one side and blank on the other. Each line was completely unrelated to the next, making it impossible to glean any meaning from the whole. The trick revealed itself, however, while she was sorting the pages that made no sense. She found that each line continued on the same line of a different page. In Ogai's diary, for example, the first day began on the first line, then continued not with the next line, but with the first line on the next page. Similarly, the second day was the second line, the third day was the third line, and so on and so forth. After filling all the lines on one set of pages, Ogai had torn them out and scattered them among his other files. There was no regularity to how the pages were numbered, of course. Unable to locate any sort of key or legend, Ryoko had no choice but to figure out the page order manually. Despite knowing that the task would be exhausting, Ryoko set to it valiantly. After separating all of the loose-leaf sheets from the jumbled files, she began the painstaking process of linking pages together according to the contents of their first line. She found that Ogai had dismantled and scattered his diary each time he completed a number of days equal to the lines on one page, and had done the same with his research notes every 30 pages or so. The diary was much easier to restore because the entries varied in length. Later pages had a larger number of blank lines. The page with only one line, therefore, was the last page of the diary, and those with the most blank spaces could be considered closer to the end. Ryoko's perseverance has paid off, for she has already succeeded in restoring several volumes of Ogai's diary. As she reads them, she feels despair draining her spirit, as it has so many times before. This cursed feeling of powerlessness that comes with knowing hidden truths. Those who have tasted it once shall be beaten down by it again and again until the day they die. All secrets are connected after all. Once you have glimpsed even the tiniest fraction of the world's true face, you have no choice but to watch in horror as the veil rolls itself back inch by inch. All that remains is to wait for the day when insanity will crush your reason under its every mounting weight. I have succeeded in communicating with the organism. It shows enormous curiosity, and its intelligence is beyond doubt. See research notes for confirmed voice patterns and body language. I guess that's what's written in his diaries. Its appetite for knowledge is insatiable, and its learning efficiency is off the charts. However, it exhibits absolutely no desire to be recognized as an individual. And he's talking about Saya here, I guess. Huh? Its ego appears to be quite weak, suggesting a psyche wholly unlike that of a human. The speed of the organism's linguistic development is astounding. When I laughed at its mispronunciations, it immediately picked up the concept of puns. Ever since, it has been employing its entire vocabulary in an attempt to find puns that will make me laugh. Perhaps in a few days' time it will have learned enough language for us to communicate freely. The organism's command of spoken language is now sufficient to facilitate higher-level discourse, but although it has regaled me with questions all day, it remains unable to answer any of mine. Its replies suggest that it only gained awareness of after materializing in this universe. It has no knowledge of where it came from. While I am disappointed, the fact that it has reached this level of intelligence only 1 week after starting to think tells me that there is no end to what I can learn from it. Hypothesis. It is not a naturally occurring organism, but was created by an even more sophisticated sentient life form. This would explain why it has no ego, yet possesses such a hunger for knowledge. It might be some sort of reconnaissance drone that was sent here from another world. Maybe Saya is an alien. Could be. But then the question would be, how did she come to Earth? With a spaceship? Or on top of a meteor or something? Ryuko smiles smorelessly for the umpteenth time since she started reading. How wonderful it would be if she could laugh the diary off as the delusions of a madman or the work of a science fiction writer. Alas, she knows far too much. When she thinks back to the many horrors that Ogai brought into her life, the words before her take on chilling incredibility. I have confirmed that the organism's brainpower far surpasses any human's. This morning I taught it about prime numbers. After I explained the Lucas-Lemur test for Mersenne primes, it immediately began to list examples that it had calculated in its head. I was only able to confirm by memory up to number 10M89, but it continued to list further examples without any trouble. I left it to its calculations, and when I returned a few hours later, I discovered that it had written down more than 70 of them. Computers all over the world are currently working to calculate Mersenne primes, but the last one I remember being found was the 39th back in 2001. When I entered several of the results into my laptop and ran the Lucas-Lemur test on them, I found that every one was correct. The same is no doubt true of the rest. After all, the organism has never shown the pathological need for respect that would lead it to lie about its accomplishments. I see no reason to doubt its veracity. If I could reveal to the world an expedient method for discovering Mersenne primes, the prize money would make me a billionaire. Of course, my current research is worth far more than any sum of money. I must keep it secret. The organism's computational speed exceeds that of even the most powerful supercomputers. I can only conclude that its cognitive faculties are beyond anything humanity can imagine. At the organism's request, we have begun a new field of study. Despite its immeasurable aptitude for mathematics, it now desires to concentrate on sociology and the natural science. Perhaps our math problems are simply too elementary for it. It has shown especially keen interest in the means by which organisms reproduce and multiply. As it possesses nothing that could be called emotion, I hesitate to use this description, but when it learned about DNA, it seemed somehow excited. In fact, the organism itself seemed surprised by its reaction. When asked about the nature of the impulse, the organism decided to label it instinct. If this description is indeed accurate, then this is an extremely interesting development. It would mean that there is a deeper level to its psyche than just the knowledge it has acquired since coming to this world. If I can use this discovery to trace its roots, I might be able to learn what it truly is. Note: candidates for the plane and world of the organism's origin are discussed on the Silver Key file separately. I spent the whole day carrying books into its room. Apparently, the organism is no longer satisfied by the knowledge I am able to impart. It should come as no surprise, considering its linguistic prowess, but the speed at which it consumes text is astounding. The diary continues for some time, chronicling the intimate relationship between Ugai and it. In the back of her mind, Ryoko imagines the old doctor climbing down the well in the middle of the night to hold congress with some inhuman creature in that bizarre laboratory. The image is disturbingly similar to the nightmares that have shattered the silence of many nights with her screams. What follows, however, makes even her worst nightmares pale in comparison. The organism has made a very strange request. This is the first time it has asked for anything other than food and reading materials. I can hardly believe it, but it wants to consume the sperm of living creatures. This is separate from its desire for food. Once again, it is describing this impulse as instinctive. Now that it has declared itself as a life form that requires the seed of males, it has begun to identify itself as female. After today, I suppose I shall have to start calling the organism a she. Is the personality that she has begun to exhibit really just an imitation created for amusement? Ever since she started to immerse herself in our literature, she has been acting astonishingly human. She identifies herself as female and already possesses an enormous store of cultural knowledge. Is she trying to create a human identity for herself based on these? I have seen her laugh, grow angry, and today she cried. Is she just copying our emotional displays? If not, then she's already. Is the soul something that any intelligent life form can acquire? I fear that I am witnessing something more mysterious than the genesis of life itself. Today is her birthday. Although it is a year late, I want to give her a special gift. Saya was the name of my mother's cat. In childhood, she was my sole friend and my beloved. I decided long ago that if I were ever blessed with children, I would give this name to my daughter. Happy birthday, Saya. Let this be the name of your soul. You have earned it. The ability that Saya has discovered in herself is showing more extraordinary results each day. I have no doubt that she is a kind of artist. What exactly is it that she created in her body from the rat semen I gave her? At this point, I can only surmise that it is a type of retrovirus, a reverse transcriptase enzyme that creates exactly what she desires. The rats that have been transformed by her art are so very beautiful now. The many enzymes secreted by her body and the various appendages she uses are discussed in detail in my biological observations, filed separately. Here I will say this. By witnessing Saya perform her operations on several rats, I have gained much confidence in my theory that her body is designed specifically to manipulate the biology of other organisms. Ryoko looks grimly at the still unsorted mountain of research notes. When she finally manages to separate those papers, she will probably find the many other files mentioned in the diary. Ugai's biological observations, at the very least, she wants to look through those before facing the thing called Saya. Under no circumstances does she want to go into battle unprepared. She looks at her watch and sees that it's already 7 in the morning. Assuming Tono Koji made no stops, he should be arriving in Tokyo about now. Now that it's too late, she wishes she'd stopped that stubborn fool from leaving, even if she'd had to shoot him in the leg to do it.